Hi everyone, welcome back to the best recapped movie. In this episode, we discuss the unique movie The Equalizer, the first part of this series. It is an action and crime film in which Denzel Washington, a former DIA, becomes a prisoner of his emotions and decides to help a teenage prostitute, but this gets him involved in a Russian Mafia gang and he is forced to return to action. Spoilers ahead. First, Robert McCall prepares his breakfast, cuts his hair, sets his watch, and gets ready to work. It turns out that he works in a hardware store, and his responsibility is to move loads. He treats his colleagues with kindness and a smile and then meets his best friend Ralphie at lunchtime. He explains that the contents of the sandwich he is about to eat are vegetarian. Still, when he bites into it, the crisp sound catches Robert's attention. He realizes that he hid the chips inside his sandwich, and Robert warns him that if he wants to be a security guard, he has to work hard. He returns home after work, and from his behavior, it seems that he is a very ordered person. Then he patiently puts a tea bag on a napkin and goes to a small restaurant with a book, which is his hangout most nights. He sets his table, and the waiter pours boiling water for him after he puts the tea bag in his glass. Teri, a regular restaurant customer, asks him about the story of his book. After talking, Robert tells her, "I thought you didn't want to eat sweets anymore because it's not good for your voice," and she also hopes that one of these days, she will stop eating them. After settling the account and while she leaves, Teri asks him to tell her the end of the story later. The next day, after his colleagues ask him about his former job, he says that dancing was his main job before that. After dancing a little, he gets the applause of his colleagues, and the next night, Teri enters the restaurant while he reading a book, and after ordering, she asks Robert about the story, and they talk for a while. Then her phone rings and she reluctantly accepts something and leaves the restaurant feeling sad. Still, Robert watches her, sees her enter a fat man's car, and then continues his study. The next day, as Ralphie's coach, he makes him train hard, but when he gets tired, he asks him not to give up and to keep trying harder so that maybe one day he will have to save him and carry him instead of a tire. After work, it is night, and he goes to his usual restaurant again. As soon as he enters, he puts a plate of food before Teri. He tells her his colleagues made it for him and doesn't want it to go to waste. After asking his age, Teri goes to the table and apologizes for her question, but Robert says it's not like that and asks her to join him. She introducing themselves and Robert asks her about the bruise on her face, and she says it was something stupid. With a little pause, Teri gives him a CD of her songs and asks him to tell her what he thinks after listening. Robert realizes that her real name is Alina and encourages her to achieve her goals, but Alina believes that he knows what her real job is, and after hearing her words, Robert says, "Change your world."
Change your world.
After a little talk, she tells him that there is something in his eyes that is not sadness, but loss. Their conversation continues outside the restaurant until they are near Robert's house, and it is time to say goodbye. At the same time, a car stops in front of them, and Slavy gets out of it and, after beating Alina, puts her in the car. At the suggestion of his subordinate Teri, he gives Robert a business card and tells him to call them whenever he is looking for a prostitute. After this incident, he goes to the restaurant every night. Still, he does not see Alina there anymore, and the owner of the restaurant informs him that he heard that she is in the ICU due to her injuries in a fight. Robert goes to the hospital where Alia is hospitalized and sees her from a distance. While her face is badly injured, one of her friends named Mandy is next to her and comforts her. After some time, Robert meets her when she wants to pour herself some tea, gets to know her, and introduces himself as Alina's friend. She explains to him that their boss is Slavy, and when Alina defends herself, he beats her so much that it would be a lesson for others. Slavy is the head of a Russian restaurant. After entering there, he goes to his room, and Teri gives him the money he took from the customers. Then Robert enters the room and tells him that he got a card from him a few nights ago and now he has come for a girl named Alina, who is seriously injured. Slavy insults him, but Robert puts an envelope of money on the table and tells him that he will pay $9,800 for her release. Slavy again laughs at him with contempt and informs him that she is not for sale because he earns this money for 2 weeks with her. So he asks Robert to leave, and Robert takes the money, but when he gets to the door, he locks it and returns. He gives himself 16 seconds and then, with his unique speed and skills, kills them all incredibly, one after another. Then he goes to Slavy, And while he asks, "Who are you?" Robert tells him that he will die in 30 seconds due to blood loss, and Alina, who was beaten by him, continues her life. He goes home and washes his hands, and the next day, Ralphie comes to him and informs him that he has lost weight, which makes him happy. Teddy Renson comes to America, and with the help of one of Boston's corrupt detectives, Masters, they get on a mission to find the killer. It turns out that Teddy is the right-hand man of a Russian mafia boss named Vladimir Pushkin, and he warns Masters and his men that he is now the boss and they must obey him to complete this mission. He explains that exports and transfers have been cancelled due to Slavy's murder and that it is unacceptable when there is a conspiracy against Mr. Pushkin's people, and he has come to deal with this issue. Robert notices that Ralphie hasn't come to work and inquisitively learns that he has resigned, so he rushes to his mother's store to find out. When he arrives there and meets him, Ralphie explains that there was a fire there last night due to an electrical connection. He had to resign to help his mother, but soon after, Robert could tell from how he talked that it wasn't about the fire and something else had happened. The issue is related to other events that Ralphie refuses to talk about. With the help of Masters, Teddy investigates the rival gangs in the area and goes to one of them named Johnny. Still, when they arrive, an argument starts between them. With Johnny's repeated insults, Masters kills his men, and Teddy brutally punishes the Irish mob lieutenant by repeatedly punching him to death. As he leaves, Masters tells him that this is my home and you shouldn't act like a savage, but he informs him that he almost sent them a message. Teddy interrogates Mandy, another prostitute, for further investigation and asks her if she saw any suspicious behavior from anyone before Slavy's death. She replies that he was the one who never revealed anything in front of the girls. He asks her if she knows Teri because she has been missing for a few days, and Mandy says she doesn't know her very well and avoids answering. Teddy checks photos of the entrance and exit of the restaurant and calls Pushkin, informing him that the murderer is an exact person. Still, Pushkin warns him that he should find him faster because he doesn't want something like this to happen again. After eating at Ralphie's mother's restaurant, two corrupt police officers ask her for a ransom so that they don't disturb her there. They take the money, and when they leave, Robert tells them he wants to report a crime, but they pass by without paying attention. When they get into the car, Robert calls them and announces that he has found two corrupt cops. They get out angrily, but Robert has recorded their entire conversation. They threaten to leave him in the river by tying concrete to his feet. Still, with his amazing skills, Robert punishes both of them severely. He warns them they will pay for their behavior if they do not return the money to their owners, otherwise, the recorded video will be widely published. They do, and Robert is happy about it. Upon further investigation, Teddy realizes that Mandy lied about Teri and forces her to talk. She is forced to tell him everything about Robert. He then spitefully strangles her after giving her a glass of water and kills her as she begs for her life. After that, it seems that Robert is playing baseball with his colleagues in the store's sports stadium, and when the game is over, Ralphie is seen in a security suit. Robert and other people congratulate him for getting this job. At the store, Robert goes to the cashier, Jenny, about something but realizes that an armed robber is sneaky forcing her to give him the cash. Robert intends to punish the thief but focusing on his surroundings, he sees a woman with two children nearby and regrets attacking the thief. The thief also threatens them and asks Jenny to give him her ring, but Jenny says that it was inherited from her grandmother, and she doesn't want to lose it. Robert, who doesn't see the situation well, gives in to the thief's request, but when he leaves, he follows him to memorize his car's license plate number. After the police presence there while Ralphie is frustrated as a security guard there, Robert cheers him up and says this has happened before, and after that, he seems to be looking to punish the thief and picks up a hammer from the shelf. The next day, in disbelief, Jenny opens the box and sees her ring, and it is clear that Robert did what he was supposed to do. On the other hand, by checking the entrances and exits in the restaurant on the day of the incident, Teddy shows the group a blurry photo of Robert so that they can investigate him. He goes to him to find out who he really is. For this reason, when he leaves the house, Teddy interrogates him as a policeman. After a few questions and answers, Robert realizes he is not a policeman, and when he returns to his car, he is suspicious of him. Masters and his people investigate Robert's life and report his usual resume to Teddy. Still, he believes it is all fake and informs them that we must catch him cleanly. By sending one of his men dressed as an electrician to the cafe where he goes to study at night, he intends to arrest him. Still, Robert learns from his hands that he is not an electrician. He pulls out his gun and asks him to surrender while a truck obstructs Teri and Master's view. Robert also takes advantage of the opportunity, and even though he is injured, after killing him, he immediately cuts off the electricity in the restaurant. He emerges, takes pictures of Teri with his mobile phone, and walks away. Teri also orders his men to chase him and arrest him alive. In this case, Robert injures one of his men and realizes he is a corrupt policeman, and Teri and his men miss him, so they attack his house. While Robert is in the bathroom treating his leg wound, they enter the house and hear the tap, but when they open the bathroom door, no one is there. It turns out that Robert is in another house. He can seize them every moment through the hidden cameras he has installed in the house, but soon Teri realizes that they are in his sight and asks his people to find him as soon as possible. After this, Robert travels to his former friends and colleagues at DIA, Susan Plummer, and her husband Brian. After dinner, he asks Susan to use her influence in the organization to reveal Teri's identity. The next day, while he and Brian are playing chess, it is revealed that Robert was also a former DIA and was long thought to have been killed in a bombing incident. A little later, Susan lands in a special organization helicopter with documents. She informs him that he destroyed Vladimir Pushkin's agent on the East Coast, the head of the Russian Mafia who smuggles everything. By revealing Teri's true identity as Nikolai Yanchenko, she warns him that he is now a Russian secret police agent, and the person is very accurate and sharp. She also informs that he killed 2 Boston detectives, and one of them, Frank Masters, has not been heard from for several days. After Robert leaves, Susan returns home, and Brian asks if you could help him. Susan also says that he did not come for help, he came for permission. Masters hears the sound of his car's alarm, and after going to the parking lot to check the issue, Robert immediately hits him, puts him in the car, and handcuffs him. He forces the Masters to confess everything through torture him by gas. Still, he refuses, and Robert does this several times until he gives in and reveals everything. Robert enters one of Pushkin's money laundering warehouses through him and sees the warehouse manager, Andrei. Masters tells him that this warehouse has been exposed and they should leave as soon as possible, and Robert explains that he is now Pushkin's new man, but he does not believe it. When Andrei approaches him, Robert immediately grabs his gun and warns that if they all don't surrender, he will kill him. After that, he settled accounts with all the personnel there. He asks Masters to report the place to the police and, after the call, asks him to do the right thing and reveal other secret documents related to Pushkin's money laundering. The police arrest Masters, Andrei, and his men and find a note written by Robert, "Follow the money." Robert finds the confidential money laundering documents, and by finding the central cores, he provides them to the FBI. Then he goes to the 2 Pushkin oil tankers and destroys them. He meets Teri in a restaurant and threatens him that his boss will stop the operation tonight. Teri also laughs and mocks him as disposable, like a bottle door. Still, after some talk, Robert reveals a part of his personal life. He shows him that his decision is serious and gives him a chance to make the right decision and get his number, then leaves. After destroying the fuel tankers, Pushkin calls Teri, announces that he lost millions of dollars, and warns him that if he doesn't fix the situation, he better not return. In response to Robert's work, Teri takes hostages his colleagues in the hardware store and tells him to surrender himself. Otherwise, he will kill them all, then tell him the location of the appointment. Surprisingly, Robert does not give in to their demands and does not surrender, and he goes to the hardware store to save his colleagues. A little later, the sound of music is played in the hardware store, and one of the mobsters asks Ralphie to show him the source. When they go to the camera control room, he turns off the sound, but when he leaves, Robert immediately kills him very quickly. Then, in Latin, he wirelessly informs his colleague that his life is in danger, and by tricking him and, of course, with the help of Ralphie, he kills another. He asks Ralphie to get the hostages out of the back door, and at the same time, Teri and his men enter the store. In this case, Robert closes all exit doors and shuts off the store's electricity. With the equipment in the store, he kills 2 of them one after the other in a horrible way, but Teri suddenly sees him and shoots him in the hand. Robert uses a lighter on the shelves to burn his wound and stop the bleeding, and at the same time, Teri and his men are looking for him. A little later, Teddy fights with another of them and kills him after a hard battle. Ralphie comes to help and carries him while he is tired on the ground, but it doesn't take long before Teddy shoots him in the leg. Although he is wounded, while they are being shot at, Robert asks him to connect the power cable in 40 seconds. Teddy sees and chases him, and Ralphie also manages to reach the electric line with difficulty and connects it. Teddy's last man is killed by another clever trick from Robert. After that, Ralphie is unsuccessful in opening a way for him to escape, and Teddy gets closer every moment to kill him. Still, immediately, Robert foils his plan with a nail hammer shot and he emerges behind the shelves while the store's fire sensors are activated. He kills Teddy with successive shots of a nail hammer. 3 days later, he goes to Moscow and, while he is taking a bath, informs Pushkin that he has come to kill him after he attacks his residence and kills the guards. He leaves the water tap open after cutting off the room's electricity. Pushkin moves forward to take his gun, but he is suddenly killed by electrocution. After recovering, Alina finds Robert sometime later and claims that she is doing better now. After some talk, she says she has also seen a job. She says that when she was discharged from the hospital, she found almost $10,000 with her belongings along with an exit ticket, and she is sure that Robert left it for her. She admits she is experiencing a new start and thanks him for everything. After kissing him, she says goodbye, and at the movie's end, Robert returns to his usual routine. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel.